trip home today. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all the things. So, been trying to keep up with the news, which through my work week is a little difficult, working night shift, and with the commute that I have to and from, trying to get rest between shifts and things like that. But I'm up to speed enough to talk a little about this. And here's kind of what's on my mind today. So there's a TV show, I don't remember what show. It was a early to mid 90s TV show, and I heard this today that they removed 2 episodes out of the playlist on their streaming service, whatever it was. I don't remember if it was, if it was Prime, Netflix, HBO, Hulu, whatever, but 2 episodes were removed from this series. The reason being is these episodes featured blackface, but in a manner that was making fun of people that do blackface as a sign of racial inferiority. So someone dressed up in blackface making fun of those that dress up in blackface to mock black people. A statue of Ulysses S. Grant was toppled. And for those of you that don't know history, he won the Civil War for the Union. So statues of Abraham Lincoln were vandalized. And so I'm worrying that we're going to end up canceling all the things. And the following is just a brief list out of the things that I'm familiar with that you're just going to have to cancel due to racial insensitivity or a thing like that. You've got Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's, and Quaker Oats that are rebranding or considering rebranding. You're going to have to cancel the show, I think it was the Jeffersons, a little bit before my time. Yeah, the Jeffersons. You're going to have to cancel that. You're going to have to cancel a few episodes of the TV show House because he made several racially insensitive remarks or Dr. House did. Yeah. Going to have to cancel a lot of Tyler Perry movies, the Medea movies, because they portray a certain stereotypical person. And cancel culture, in my opinion, it's a snake that's turned around and started eating its own tail. So we're just going to have to cancel everything and start over again from all racial sensitivity and all this, that, and the other. I don't see the point. You know, the other day, I was having an interesting discussion with my wife about learning from those that came before us. You know, taking one person's theories or thoughts or inventions and using or improving them, which has made every generation in succession overall smarter and better off than the generation before, due to just improvements in everything and applying more thought to things. I'm a car nut, so I'll equate this in car terms. The first mass-produced automobile was the Ford Model T, the vehicle for everybody, or the vehicle everybody could afford. And it had this whopping 4-cylinder engine. I want to say it was like a big 4-cylinder engine, manual crank, that if you did it improperly or weren't fast enough could break your arm. The belts for the transmission had to be replaced every 500 miles or they'd start slipping. But people continue to improve upon the original design, and now today I've got a car that is made by Ford, cheap enough for most people to afford one brand new, gets nearly 40 miles a gallon, not a hybrid, and I've had a basically trouble-free 78,000 miles out of it. The only repair I've had to do to the car is I had to swap the coolant reservoir cap. It started leaking. So, and if you want to break it down even further than that, if we used no history or no knowledge from prior people, everybody would be living in the Stone Age right now. So there are benefits to learning about what those before us did. Their curiosity, the knowledge that they had, their incorrect assumptions, their unprovable assumptions. You know, scientists had theories, but the technology to prove them just didn't exist yet. Things like that. I get the argument to take down Confederate statues in public spaces. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I get it. There's an argument to be made, sensible, reasonable discussion to be had. Okay. But hooking the statues up and dragging them down because the mob wants them down is vandalism, plain and simple. And I don't care what statue you're pulling down, I can't really get behind that. I think that there are a ton of museums or memorial parks, historical sites that could benefit from having the statues that could fall into the category of offensive to some. But I don't think that any history should be offensive. I think that it's all a lesson that we need to learn. When I was a teenager, I want to say I was around 13, 14 years old, we took a couple trips within just a couple years to DC. And we went to a bunch of the Smithsonian museums and a bunch of the other museums in the area, and it was a wonderful experience. If you haven't had the chance yet, I'd highly recommend you go if you get the opportunity. One of the museums that we went to was the Museum of American History. It showed, in that museum, it showed the wrongs of slavery. It showed how the more harsher slave owners, how brutal they could have been in their handling of their slaves. It showed how wrong America treated the Native American Indians. It showed there were a lot of artifacts from 9/11 there. There was a fire truck door that when the towers fell, the truck was too close, the door got ripped off the truck. There were a lot of pictures of the day. There was debris from the towers there. The most haunting thing of it, the two things I remember the most vividly, was they had voicemails that were left either by victims that were killed in the tower crashes to their loved ones, or frantic messages from family members of those that passed away trying to get in touch, knowing that they could have been there, knowing that their loved ones may have been caught up in either the plane crashes or the towers as they were being hit. They had those playing, and that was gut-wrenching. The other thing that was that stuck with me quite a bit, there was a picture of George W. Bush there the morning of 9/11. He was at an elementary school in Florida or Georgia, I believe, down that way, and Secret Service had to deliver the news, and there was a picture of George W. Bush sitting in this, decorated 3rd, 4th grade classroom, and he had the most unexplainable look on his face. But he maintained his composure, and I remember watching video of that where he was told, and that moment lasted only a second, but he maintained his composure as he left the classroom and didn't start asking any questions till he got out of earshot of the children. But if you want to make a reasonable argument for removing a few statues from the public space and put them someplace a little more private, museums, monuments, parks, things like that, Civil War graveyards, all on board for that. You start just yanking them down willy-nilly, and also yanking down statues where it doesn't necessarily make sense, or you're just wrong in your history, not on board. And canceling all the things if this keeps up, eventually no entertainment that has been acceptable from, say, the year 2000 to the year 2020, none of that's going to be acceptable. None of the music. I mean, there's just so much that humanity has created over the years for our enrichment, entertainment, culture, whatever you want to call it, and we're just going to cancel everything. I don't get it. I just hate how divisive everything has become, and how divisive everyone's making everything. I'm getting to the point where, since I'm not a public figure, really, and people don't tune into this in huge numbers, and I have a 9-to-5 job that pays the bills. I don't have to talk politics, and I don't have to be informed constantly and constantly up to speed on everything. I can understand the appeal of just unplugging from the news, unfollowing news sources, listening to different podcasts that are more for entertainment than informing. I can understand the appeal of that. I doubt I will, but I can understand it. And next week we go on our yearly maintenance shutdown. A bunch of guys come in and do maintenance and overhauling of older equipment, and when that happens, I doubt I'll be watching a lot of news. I've got some stuff around the house I need to get done. I want to relax, and nothing in the news is relaxing. None of the news is overly good, in my opinion. So I doubt I'll be watching the news very much. I have no idea what I'll be doing, aside from working on the few odd things I need to get caught up on around the house. I got to do a little maintenance on equipment. Got to try to fix some stuff. Oh, I can hear my dad smirking when I talk about this. There's this old farm tractor I've got. Been in the family for 3 generations now. My granddad bought it, gently used. When my granddad passed away, it became my dad's. When my dad passed away, it became mine. And in the past 2 years, just about every time I've touched the tractor, something breaks. Case in point example. Last year, I go to just do a little maintenance on it. I break a thing. Get parts, finally fix it. Something else breaks. Get that fixed. And I got a bunch of dirty fuel out of a nasty can. So I had to fix the fuel filters that I'd just done normal maintenance on. That didn't go right. I couldn't get the system primed, so that was above my level of mechanical expertise. Took it to a mechanic. He got it fixed, got it up and running. Now, every time you park it for an extended period of time, the battery drains out. So if you want to start it, you gotta jump it or put the battery on a charger box for a little while before you go to start it. The tractor was running fine, got the battery charged, hooked the bush hog up to it, took it out to bush hog. Don't run into my car, dear. Okay, good. Hooked the bush hog up to it, went to go bush hogging. Got 2.5 laps into my bush hogging, and I found a piece of fence post that had been chopped off and left there in the tall grass, not by me. And I broke the shear pins on the bush hog. Go out, buy new shear pins for the bush hog. All this is this year, by the way. Go out, buy new shear pins for the bush hog. Go out bush hogging. I get a decent amount done. I was nearly done for the day. I had just like a little patch of grass left to cut, little maybe 10 by 20 foot wide stretch. And I look at the tire, I'm making a turn, and I look at the tire and something's just off. So I cut the wheel and look at it more, and I notice one of the lug nuts seems to be backed out a little bit. Well, that's no good. I can tighten that up. Well, I get done cutting and I realize that all of them are loose, and I'm on the back of the farm, and I got no way to lift that tractor up if it throws the tire. So I jump off of it, run them down where all the threads are sticking into the hub, but they're not snug. And I'll limp it back to the house at a whopping mile an hour, constantly checking to make sure the studs are sticking out of the hub. Doesn't have lug nuts, it has wheel studs. So now I gotta get new wheel studs ordered because the threads are all screwed up on those wheel studs. So it has not failed that every time this year I've touched the tractor, if I get it fixed, I break it in another way. So I gotta try to get those wheel studs ordered. Hopefully they come in quickly so I can get them replaced while I'm off work and finish the bush hogging that I need to do. Because I've got a little bit more left to do. I got the biggest chunk of it done, but there's a little bit more that needs to be done. And I'd like to get it done before the grass gets completely wild. Anyway, folks, that's basically what I got. I don't want to cancel things. I don't want to continue breaking my tractor. I think that we need to appreciate history. If you want to make a sensible argument about removing some statues from public places, I'll listen. That's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. This has been another Cruise with Smooth. I hope everyone's able to have a good 4th of July.